What happens when love meets pride, and truth is crushed beneath the weight of judgment? In today's gripping episode, witness the emotional storm that unfolds as Diem, an honest, hard-working single mother, is humiliated by Toan's powerful, cold-hearted mother right in front of her community. Labeled a gold digger and shamed for her past, Diem falls to her knees, pleading for a love she thought was real. But after relentless insults and betrayal, she makes the most heartbreaking decision of all, to walk away. Don't miss this powerful story of love, dignity, and sacrifice. Subscribe now to follow Diem's journey and discover what happens next. The sun had barely climbed above the horizon when the tranquility of the small countryside farm was shattered by the roar of an approaching engine. A sleek black luxury car tore through the narrow dirt road, its glossy surface glinting under the early light. Dust swirled in its wake, startling chickens and scattering goats. Farmers paused mid-task, raising their heads in confusion. No one in the area owned such a car until now. The door swung open with force. Stepping out in sharp heels and a tailored silk suit was Madame Ly, Toan's mother, a woman known in the city not just for her wealth, but for the ruthless pride with which she guarded her family name. Her lips were painted a deep red, her pearl necklace shimmered with cold elegance, and her gaze was like a blade. She didn't wait for an introduction. "So this is where she lives," she muttered, disgustedly surveying the rickety barn, the mud-stained boots by the doorstep, and the humble wooden house nestled among overgrown grass. "The kind of woman who thinks she can steal my son." Her eyes locked onto Diem, who was crouching beside a water trough, refilling it for the animals. Dressed in a faded plaid shirt and jeans streaked with dirt, Diem looked up, caught off guard. Her eyes widened in confusion, then fear, as she recognized the stranger approaching her. "You're Diem, right?" Madame Ly's voice sliced through the silence like a whip. "The girl who thinks she can trap my son into marrying her?" The workers nearby fell silent. Some instinctively stepped back, unsure whether to intervene or disappear. Diem slowly stood up, her hands still damp from the water. "I'm sorry, who are you?" "I'm Toan's mother," she snapped. "And I've come to make one thing clear. You may fool some with your sweet country girl act, but you're not fooling me. You're nothing but a gold digger." A gasp rippled through the crowd. Diem's face turned pale. Her lips parted as if to speak, but before she could answer, another voice chimed in. "She's been quite strategic, madam," said a man stepping out from the passenger side of the car. He wore a smug expression and dark sunglasses, despite the shade. It was Mr. Hong, Madame Ly's personal secretary, the man she had secretly assigned to spy on Diem for weeks. "I've followed her for days," he continued, addressing his employer but speaking loud enough for all to hear. "She hides things. The child she raises, she claims it's her niece, but some neighbors say it's her own. And she once had another man visit her here late at night. What kind of woman does that? Madame Ly turned to Diem, her smile twisted with triumph. You see? You're not just poor. You're deceitful. A disgrace. Diem opened her mouth, then closed it again. Her chest tightened. The eyes around her eyes that once showed kindness were now filled with uncertainty and judgment. The animals bleated in the background as if sensing the tension. I love Toan, she whispered, her voice barely audible. But it didn't matter. No one was listening. Madame Ly stepped forward, towering over her. Women like you don't love. You calculate. You think because my son helped you fix this farm, that you deserve him? Let me tell you something, girl, he deserves better. Much, much better. Diem stood frozen, her heart racing, her hands trembling by her sides. The humiliation washed over her like a wave, drowning any words she wanted to say. And just when she thought it couldn't hurt more, Mr. Hong chuckled softly behind his glasses. Honestly, he said mockingly, this place smells like desperation. And for the first time in a long while, Diem felt truly small. The silence that followed was suffocating. Diem stood in the middle of the farmyard, the air heavy with dust and judgment. Her legs felt numb, her heart thumped wildly in her chest, and her throat tightened like a vice. The words Madame Ly had hurled at her still echoed, gold digger, disgrace, unworthy. For a moment, she wanted to run, to hide from the dozens of eyes boring into her. But she didn't. She couldn't. Instead, she did the last thing anyone expected. Diem sank to her knees in the dirt. Gasps erupted from the farmhands. Even Mr. Hong blinked behind his glasses, startled by the suddenness of her gesture. Madame Ly, arms crossed and lips curled in disdain, looked down at her as if watching a beggar kneel at her designer heels. But Diem didn't care. I know I'm not what you wanted for Toan, she began, voice cracking but loud enough for every word to ring out. I know I don't come from money. I know I don't wear silk or pearls. I know I'm not polished. She lifted her tear-streaked face to meet Madame Ly's glare. But what I feel for your son is real. I love him with all my heart. The wind stirred, carrying the scent of soil and hay. It tangled Diem's hair across her cheeks, but she didn't wipe it away. I didn't ask Toan to fix my farm. He came because he wanted to. He saw the animals, the leaking roof, and he helped, just like he helps everyone. I never once asked for his money. Her voice grew steadier with every sentence, her tears falling freely now. I only asked for his heart. Mr. Hong scoffed. A pretty performance. But Diem ignored him. I wake up at dawn. I feed the goats, I till the soil. I raise a child on my own, not because I wanted to lie, but because I was left with no choice. Yes, I'm a single mother. Yes, I've made mistakes. But poverty is not a crime. Loving someone shouldn't require permission or pedigree. Madame Lou's eyes narrowed. She walked closer, heels sinking into the soft earth with every step. Then she leaned down, her voice low but razor-sharp. "You think a few tears will make me see you differently," she hissed. "Let me remind you of something, girl. Love is a luxury, and women like you can't afford it. You don't just lack money, you lack class, vision, refinement. You're not just poor. You're basic, ordinary, disposable." Each word stabbed deeper than the last. "And raising someone else's child," she added cruelly. "That's not strength, that's baggage." Diem flinched, but stayed on her knees. Her fingers dug into the dirt, trembling. "Back," she whispered, slipping into her native term for and out of instinct and desperation. "Please, I'm not asking for anything. I just want to be with the person I love." "Then love him from afar," Madame Ly snapped. "Because you'll never belong in our world." And then, with cold finality, she turned her back. Mr. Hong followed, smug and silent. Their footsteps echoed with authority, slicing through the tension like knives. The workers stood frozen, unsure whether to comfort Diem or stay out of it. One elderly woman stepped forward, but Diem slowly raised a hand, signaling them not to. She rose to her feet, slowly, shakily. The sun had risen higher now, casting sharp light on her tear-streaked face. Her knees were caked in dust, her heart shattered, her dignity bruised, but her voice, when she spoke again, was clear. "If love costs this much," she said, "then maybe I was never meant to afford it." And with that, Diem turned toward her house, leaving behind the crowd, the whispers, and the broken pieces of hope still clinging to the morning air. Diem's footsteps echoed hollowly against the wooden planks of her front porch. Each step felt heavier than the last, not from physical exhaustion, but from the weight of humiliation, heartbreak, and something even deeper, finality. The farm, once her place of healing, had become a stage for her public undoing. Inside, the quiet was deafening. Her child was still asleep in the next room, blissfully unaware of the storm that had raged outside. Diem stood in the doorway, staring at the small sandals by the bed, the tiny blanket curled at one corner. A lump rose in her throat. Her heart screamed at her to fight, to hold on to the love she had built with Toan. But her mind whispered something colder: you can't love someone whose mother sees you as filth. A knock on the door jerked her out of her thoughts. Then another. And then a voice, desperate, frantic, trembling. "DM. DM, open the door. It's me. Toan." For a moment, her breath caught. She closed her eyes, hands gripping the edge of the wooden table beside her. Part of her wanted to run into his arms, to tell him everything, how his mother had torn her apart with words sharp enough to bleed. But another part, the part still kneeling in the dust just an hour ago, soaked in shame, that part wanted to disappear. DM, please. I just got a call. My mom came here, didn't she? What did she say? What did she do? His voice cracked. She could hear him pacing outside, the sound of fists gently knocking again. DM, don't shut me out. I love you. I told her I love you. None of this matters. But it did matter. It mattered when his mother called her disposable. It mattered when the man he trusted to watch over her lied to her face in front of the entire community. It mattered that in his world, no matter how kind he was, she would always be the poor girl from the farm. Her fingers reached for the doorknob. But she stopped. I'm sorry, Toan, she whispered, voice too soft for him to hear. You deserve a future without battles like this. And I need to remember how to breathe without begging for love. With trembling hands, she picked up a single envelope from the counter. Inside was the letter she had written weeks ago but never sent, one meant for if things ever ended. A goodbye she had never imagined would come true. She opened the door just a crack. Toan stood there, eyes wide, hair disheveled, panic clear on his face. DM. She didn't let him finish. She pressed the envelope into his hand, gently but firmly. No more words, she said, tears threatening again. Please read this, when I'm gone. Toan's brows furrowed. Gone? What do you mean gone? But she had already stepped back and closed the door. Behind it, her sobs finally broke free. She packed quickly. Just enough clothes for her and the child. A few savings hidden in an old cookie tin. She left the rest, the memories, the love, the pain right there in that little house surrounded by dust and betrayal. By the time Toan opened the letter, she was already walking down the path leading away from the farm. Her child nestled on her hip, the future unknown, but her steps determined. In the letter, she wrote, loving you was never the mistake, Toan. Believing I could ever belong in your world was. And just like that, DM walked away, not because she stopped loving him, but because sometimes love alone isn't enough to overcome the cruelty of the world it tries to grow in.
Hello, xin chào tất cả khán giả của kênh Ly Tu Diem review. Vậy là tập phim ngày hôm nay đã kết thúc tại đây. Nếu mọi người thấy tập phim ngày hôm nay hay thì mọi người hãy cho mình xin một like, chia sẻ và để lại bình luận ở dưới video để làm tăng tương tác của video nhé. Cảm ơn mọi người rất nhiều. Sẽ luôn hoàn thành kênh của mình. Mọi người hãy ấn vào nút đăng ký kênh có hình quả chuông để nhận được thông báo mới nhất về các tập mới sẽ được phát sóng vào lúc 6 giờ sáng hàng ngày giờ Việt Nam trên kênh Ly Tu Diem review. Tập tiếp theo sẽ có rất nhiều tình tiết mới, đặc biệt là tình tiết Ly Tu Diem quyết định sẽ rời bỏ trang trại đi một nơi khác sinh sống để chấm dứt quan hệ yêu đương với đại sứ Toan, để vì cô cảm thấy là mẹ của CEO Toan đã xử lý cô quá nhiều ngoài sức chịu đựng của cô. Cảm ơn mọi người, xin hẹn gặp lại mọi người vào tập ngày mai nha, bye bye.